Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of my embarrassing gun questions video. So I cut this video up into 2 parts because it was getting kind of long. So this is going to be part 2. If you didn't watch part 1, I'll link it up here. What is that? Oh. If you didn't watch part 1, I'm going to link it here so you can watch that as well. But I'm just going to continue on with the questions that I started in that video. And let's go. Okay, this question has 2 parts. Is it possible to load a bullet backwards into a magazine? Okay, so here's my round. The bullet's in the front. So if I were to load this properly, I'm trying to get this to focus. Okay, if you look at my magazine here, wow, that's really dirty. You'll notice that there's a wider end here and a more narrow end back here. The wider end is where the bullet should be. It should be like this, with the back of it at the narrow end of my magazine, and the bullet, which is right here, the projectile that's gonna come out, you want that on the wide end. That's the part that's gonna come out. So when I load it in there, you can see the bullets in the wide part. See? Now, is it possible to load around in your magazine backwards? Yeah. Yes it is. That's backwards. See that wider end? That's where this projectile should be facing. So yes, it is possible. Don't recommend it. Put them in the right way. Another little trick that's helpful if you forget this is if you look at the bottom of your magazine, see that flat part here and then the round part here? It's shaped like your round. So you see the flat part here and the rounded part here. They're like the same shape. So if you get confused, that's the way that it should go. I love you guys. Oh, what was the second part? How do I lock the slide open? Okay. All right, my trusty little shield's doing a lot of work today. So how do I lock the slide open? So I have no magazine in this gun right now. It's totally empty. If I wanted to lock the slide open, if I just pull on the slide, nothing's gonna happen. There's nothing for the slide to catch on, so it's not gonna lock back. What I have to do is push up on this slide stop or slide release, whatever it's called on your specific gun, while I'm pulling the slide to the rear. So that goes like this. I'm gonna push up on it and pull the slide to the rear. And that locked it back. All right, now I'm gonna put an empty magazine in my gun. To lock the slide back when you have an empty magazine in your gun, you're just gonna pull back hard on the slide and that locks it back. I didn't have to push up on the slide stop or slide release or anything. You just pull it to the rear and it locks it back. It locks back on that magazine. What are your thoughts on informing a police officer that you're carrying if you're pulled over? I'm married to a police officer, so I'm gonna defer to him and have him answer this question. Okay, here's my lovely husband, Mac. So what are your thoughts on informing a police officer if you get pulled over that you're carrying?
This is not a super easy question to answer, and I think if you asked 100 cops, you might get 100 different answers, but I'm kind of in the unique position where I myself have been a normal gun club person for much of my life, and I've taught just as many civilians as I've taught police officers working for the firearms school, and so I hear both sides of the stories. I hear about the horror stories of people having to deal with non-gun friendly police officers going way above and beyond what they should be doing just because someone has a firearm on them. And then I've also heard cops complaining about people not telling them they had a firearm on them at certain points in a call. So the way I've always answered this question, and I still stand by it, and I've been doing this for years, is if you do not have a legal obligation to tell the police officer you're carrying, I would not tell them unless we're in a situation with the call where that gun may be found by the police officer, seen by the police officer, or it's going to become part of the call for whatever reason. Never let a police officer find a gun on you. So, for instance, just to play it out, you get pulled over, it's a simple traffic violation, you're carrying a firearm, the state you live in does not require you to divulge that information to the police officer. I would not say a word. If the officer starts asking you questions about firearms, or maybe he sees a box of ammo or something in the car, at that point, if you think the gun's going to become part of the conversation, put your hands on the steering wheel and let them know that you have a license to carry firearms and you also have a firearm on your body. I would always go with the legal authority first, then the tool second. I wouldn't say, I got a gun. By the way, I'm also legally allowed to carry it. I'd always say, I have a license to carry firearms in many other states. I have a concealed weapons permit, whatever it is. And then I'd talk about where the gun is, and I would say, it's on my right hip. Is there anything you'd like me to do? Do you want to see the license or anything like that? And don't talk with your hands, leave your hands on the steering wheel. If you have to tell the police officer because you're state, obviously tell them. If you're on a normal traffic stop and the officer asks you to step out of the car or asks you if you've been drinking and will you perform some field sobriety tests, I would absolutely tell that officer in the exact same format I just did, because that gun could be seen as you're moving around, as you're exiting the car. And again, the only really hard and fast rule is never let a police officer find the gun on you. So some cops are pro-gun, some cops are not pro-gun. I don't know who pulled you over, I don't know who you're dealing with, but that's what I would go with. That's my answer.
How can you see where you hit on a target? Okay, I don't know how far your target is, and if that's why you can't see where you're hitting. I'm gonna give you a few solutions that might help depending on what your situation is. So one is they make these glow targets. I actually have one framed in my office. One second. So these are my first targets ever. I have them framed in here, but this one here, every time your projectile hits it, it makes that like neon glow around it, so you can see where you're hitting even from further away. This one would be a little more difficult to see just because there's no glow. So if you can get glow targets, those are really cool and help you to see where you're hitting. I'll try to find some of those and link them below. Another thing you can do if you're using paper targets is in between however many rounds you want to shoot at a time, you can bring the target back, mark each single hole with a Sharpie so that the next time you bring it forward you can see the ones that aren't marked and you'll know where you hit that second time. You can also bring binoculars or something if you just can't see because it's so far away. And if you bring the target in and you still can't see where you hit, then we might have a different problem. So those are just some ideas. Hopefully that helped you. Is it okay to keep magazines loaded while stored, or will it damage the magazine? I definitely have my carry gun loaded like all the time. So this might be more of an issue for like AR mags than like your typical concealed carry magazine, but it's possible. I just haven't had personal experience with that happening with my handguns. So my very first semi-automatic is a Smith & Wesson 5904. On the barrel it says Parabellum. It does not say Luger. What's the difference? All right, so if you see Parabellum and Luger, the short answer is they are the same. I actually found a really good article by Pew Pew Tactical that I'm going to link below in case you want to read more about the history and where the names came from. Short answer, they're the same, but go read the article in case you're curious and want to know more about that. Okay, where to put the front sight in the rear sight? All right, if you have questions about how to align your sights, I've mentioned before that Mac and I are coming out with a new online course that's a live fire course. Very exciting. He's doing the majority of the teaching in it and he's a fantastic instructor, so I know you guys are going to get a lot from it. And this is something he does cover in it. I'm just going to give you a really quick demonstration. So basically when you think of aligning your sights, you want equal height and equal light. So here's my rear sight and here's my front sight, okay? Pretend I'm the target. You want equal height and equal light. So you want to align them in such a way where your eye is seeing these at an equal height, and then there's equal light coming through the sides. Equal height, equal light. He's going to go over that more in depth in Practical Handgun Academy, but sometimes it just helps to see it. You want them aligned, like dot, 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 equal height, equal light, or whatever. There might not be dots on your sights, but you guys know what I mean. Last weekend was my first live fire in years. I've been using the Mantis Laser Academy at home and felt like I was getting pretty good, but my live fires were all low and to the left. What am I doing wrong? If it's how I pull the trigger, why would it affect live fire and not the laser training? Okay, that's a great question. I love Mantis's products. I do have an affiliate link if you want to check them out below for dry fire practices at home. But you said this was your first live fire in years, so you haven't been experiencing recoil for years. You've been practicing inside your home, doing dry fire with no recoil. When we see that our rounds are impacting low and to the left, that's usually because we're anticipating the recoil and we're pushing the gun forward as we, like right when we pull the trigger. This isn't gonna affect your dry fire training because you're not anticipating any sort of recoil. It's all very psychological. A lot of it is what's going on in your head where you're shooting live fire, your brain knows that there's gonna be this big noise and recoil, and it causes you to jerk the gun, and you jerk it forward and you hit low left if you're a righty. So the difference between live fire and like laser training is that you don't have that mental recoil thing going on. So you're gonna experience different things. That makes sense. Dry fire training is great for helping you to practice when you're not at the range, but it's not a substitute for real live fire training. You still need to do those things as often as you can. So the reason that you're hitting low left is probably because as you're pulling the trigger, you're doing this. And you're like dipping the gun, and if you're a righty, it's gonna cause your rounds to go low left. So I'm gonna link a video up here that shows you how to become more accurate, and this video is awesome. I think we give you a ball and dummy drill in here that's really helpful. So watch that video if you're having trouble with this, with your trigger control, and you wanna be more accurate. Just a lot of good basic skills to practice in that video. Does putting my mag in my gun automatically load one into the chamber, or do I have to pull it back first? Okay, this is what happens. I take my round and put it in my magazine, okay? And then I put my magazine in my gun. The only thing that happened there is that the magazine went in. The round was not chambered. In order to chamber the round, I have to pull the slide to the rear and let it go, and that will take the round from the top of my magazine and chamber it. So if I take that magazine out again, you can see nothing happened to that round. No matter how many times I put it in there, that round's not going anywhere. It's staying in the magazine. In order to chamber it, I have to pull on the slide and let it go. And now it's gone. Where'd it go? There it is. I started carrying a pepper spray. How long do you go before changing it out? Your pepper spray should have an expiration date on it. It's usually a few years, maybe 2, 3, 4, depending on the pepper spray. Check the expiration date, and when it's time to change it out because it's expired, wait for a non-windy day. Go spray it outside, not around any people or anything, so you can train with it, remember how it feels, know how far it shoots and all that, instead of just throwing it away. Practice with it before you start carrying the next one. Am I a bad person for carrying at my place of work even though they do not allow it? I wouldn't say that you're a bad person. I mean, I don't know you. Maybe you are a bad person. Even if they don't allow it. So at my previous place of employment, it wasn't not allowed, but it was frowned upon, and that was made known to me by people who knew that I was into shooting. Did that stop me from carrying at that place? No, because I looked in the handbook and there was nothing in it that said that I couldn't. If it's not allowed, like your handbook specifically says it's not allowed, that's gonna be a personal choice. If you lose your job because of it, like, is that okay? Is there a family that's depending on you? That's a personal choice. If it's illegal, I wouldn't do that. If it's against the law, like you work in like a school, I would not do that if it's illegal. But if it's in the handbook, the way I saw it where I was working is that if I ever, like if anybody found out that I was carrying, it would be because I had to use it to defend myself or someone else from death or serious bodily harm. So in that situation, I would have been okay with it, especially since it wasn't explicitly written in the policy that I couldn't carry. I don't like the idea of being like a sitting duck if I have the ability to defend myself. If something were to happen. So I made that call for myself and for those around me. It's up to you. Just don't break the law. I want to conceal carry. I want to be able to hide the pistol easily, but is it a good idea to get a very small pistol? Okay. I can understand why people think that a smaller gun is better. For concealed carry, yes. Carrying something small, absolutely. Easiest thing to conceal is something small rather than something big. Sometimes I carry my little Ruger 380 rather than my shield because the shield might be a little harder to conceal in a certain outfit. However, larger guns usually recoil less than the smaller guns, and they can just be easier to shoot. So I wouldn't say that a smaller gun is necessarily better. it's honestly whatever you shoot best, that's what you should be carrying. In fact, if I want a smaller gun, I usually go for the Glock 42 because I shoot it better than the Ruger. So something that I'm confident with, like I know I can hit what I'm aiming at, that's what I'm gonna carry. And sometimes that means I carry a smaller gun depending on my outfit, but I know, like, I'm still confident with that gun. I still know that I could hit what I'm aiming at if I wanted to. But small pistols usually recoil more. So biggest advice on this, go try as many guns as you can and figure out what you shoot best, what you enjoy shooting, because if you get a tiny gun, especially like a little .38 revolver that you just hate shooting because it hurts your hand, it doesn't matter if you carry it, because if you can't hit what you're aiming at with it, what's the point? There's a balance there. All right, last question. I have a problem with the noise of guns going off, even though I have hearing protection. My adrenaline skyrockets. I'm thinking / hoping that more experience will be key to solving this. All right. I still, when I hear a gunshot, I blink. I can't undo that. I've just had that ever since I started shooting. Like, I blink. If someone's shooting next to me, I always blink. I don't know how to stop that. Like, maybe hold my eyes open. Yeah, so the noise isn't really a problem for me. It's just this like reaction I have. Yes, okay, so I have a couple tips for you. First of all, you can double up your hearing protection. I like to wear earplugs, but you can wear earplugs and then wear muffs over them, especially if you're shooting inside because it's louder. So double up your hearing protection if you want, if you're able to do that. And also starting with a smaller caliber and working your way up. Even if that's starting with like airsoft or BB guns, then moving on to like a 22 before you go to like a 380 and then a 9. Like work your way up, get more comfortable with the noise, and it's not gonna happen overnight. Like sometimes we can't help these reactions we have, but you can increase your exposure in a way that's not so scary by starting off smaller and then working your way up. A lot of people, the first time they're exposed to guns, are exposed to like a caliber that they're really not ready for. So if you're showing someone like how to use a gun for the first time, start them off small, because you don't want to develop this like this discomfort and fear of the noise. And you can also shoot outdoors. It's usually quieter, and go to a range that's not as busy. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. This was part 2, so if you guys have any more questions, I'm gonna leave the anonymous question form below so you guys can leave me more questions. Maybe we could do a part 3. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. My dogs really need a walk right now. Alright, stay safe. Bye!